Hey guys, Aldo J here. It's Sunday, May the 24th. I hope you're all having a great weekend. On the East Coast, for sure, it's very nasty weather, a lot of rain. I feel bad for folks that have gone down the Jersey Shore and have rented a place, and they have kids, and there's no beach. It's raining all day. The rides are pretty much inaccessible. It's just a horrible day, horrible weekend with that in mind. But Memorial Day weekends are always that way. They're very unpredictable, and sometimes we just have to do the best that we can, right? So for the young ones out there, use the time to get to know your siblings better. Maybe play a game, go outside, sit on the porch, like I used to do with my brother and sister, and have fun. Make it always a good, positive thing, even regardless of how the weather may be. Um, I got a lot of good news, man. I mean, a lot of good songs coming out. I wanted to reach out and let you know that I've been getting so many emails and I've been trying to keep up because I have a day job. I'm not a full-time rock musician. I'm not a rock star. I'm not out there in the limelight touring. I'm just a guy that likes music and I like to write and record. And our band did that many years ago. We formed in the early 90s on the premise of doing a concert for the American Cancer Society in memory of our mom, my brother Steve, and I. Our Steve Battelli is our drummer. Uh, we we just got together and that was the purpose. But we wrote songs in between, and that's really what happened. We wrote some really cool stuff. Um, I just I want to make sure that we get those songs out there. We're not trying to do anything more than just let people hear our stuff. We hope that our songs can help motivate you, can help you relate to certain things that we've went through in our lives. That's what music's about, right? It's about grabbing your heart. It's about touching your deepest emotions. It's about pushing forth and moving forward through sometimes the worst events of your life, right? And that's what my songs are right now that I'm working on the Aldo J project. Really, I've got some really cool rock songs. I've got some upbeat, cool stuff, and yet I have some really passionate. I hope they're passionate love songs that really come from deep inside. Hearts Collide was one of those, right? I always wanted to have a relationship where it wasn't just a fly by night. I wanted somebody to be with me through thick and thin. And, I was always into the romantics, the chivalry, you know, because of the influence I got from my parents, my aunt and uncle on both sides of the family, my grandparents, all that stuff, my parents, and obviously, you just, that experience gives you a lot of information to write it down and to convey it in music. And Hearts Collide was just that, right? I was doodling on the piano and I came out with a song and I was really amazed by it. I'm like, wow, how did I come out with that? And those are the most important things, right? Or the most special things with music, right? You don't sit there and go, I'm going to write a song today and it's going to be this and that. It just comes out, right? When you think the most and you want to try to write something, sometimes you're forcing the output. You're forcing an end result that maybe it's just not ready. You're not ready for it. The song's not ready for it. Life's not ready for it. And you can go on and on, right? And that's how it was with Hearts Collide. I was just messing around and I'm thinking, again, love, long term commitment, um, somebody that's the your better half. And all of a sudden, all these lyrics started coming to me and I started writing them down. And that was the same with how Ernie wrote songs and how Don wrote songs. How my brother and Steve, they didn't write lyrics, but they went in and started feeling something. Jim started playing a chord, and then that bred forth to a plethora of other chords and so forth. And next thing you know, I Don't Remember Yesterday came out, right? Ernie heard the song, he wrote the lyrics, and boom, there you go. You got a song, and it's out there. And that was like that with Hearts Collide, right? And I've been getting lots of emails that I'm trying my best to answer, and I hope I have. I apologize to anybody if I may have missed you. You're messaging me. You're putting a post up on our YouTube channel. You're emailing me. Whatever you're doing, I'm trying to get back to you as best as I can because, like other artists that are independent or solo artists or whatnot, that may be doing this on a full-time basis. Well, this is just something we do on the side for fun, right? High Risk was something we did many, many, many years ago. We had lots of songs. We recorded them. Some of them we released, as you know. Some of them we didn't release. And it's just again, we weren't looking forward to doing that. And I'm really thankful to Ernie and Don for getting together and coming up with these songs. And then as we're doing it, Jimmy Callista coming up and with my brother and writing that song and Ernie throwing the lyrics. And next thing you know, we've got I Don't Remember Yesterday. It's just great, and that's what I say when you're working with the band, whether it's your friends, whatever it is, it's a new band, it's a bunch of guys that you're getting acquainted with. You want to make sure that you record the information, whether you're writing it down, whether you're doing it on your phone, whether you have a recorder, whatever it is, right? Write it down. Keep a book in your car. Uh, Keep a book in your room, whatever it is, and go to a place where it's quiet, where it's serene, where you're by yourself. Um, well, I don't mean by yourself totally, right? Sometimes you can't avoid that, but you want to be where you're in your zone and you're thinking things out and you're able to write things down and you're able to view the scenery. You're able to see what's out there and you come up with so many things, you'd be surprised. But make sure that it's in a venue or an area where you're most comfortable with. You know, I actually ran into a guy, a music friend of mine from years ago. I'm not going to give his name because he didn't give me permission to do it, and I didn't ask him. But you're going to laugh at this. Maybe many people might say that's morbid, it's weird, but he goes to the cemetery, his local cemetery, and he writes words down. And then he goes home and he tries to think of chords and progressions and patterns and whatever else. But guess what? He's written some of the nicest, really coolest songs ever. And again, many people may look at that and say that's morbid, that's crazy, but that's where he finds his serenity. And quite honestly, I tried that. I've went to a local cemetery that's got trails and paths, and I walk around there and it's quiet. There's joggers, there's walkers, there's mourners, there's everything. And I'll tell you, it's a very peaceful environment. Doesn't mean that you're going to write a song about death or you're going to write a song about something that's pessimistic, but you're in an environment where maybe you have that place where you can come out with things, you can be creative and surprise yourself, right? And again, some people may look at that as, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And that may be for you, right? You might need to sit on a beach with your toes in the sand, right? Sorry, David Lee Roth. I got my, I got a drink in my hand. I got my toes in the sand, and all I need is a woman. But you see, again, that might be a good place for somebody to write a song on the beach. Somebody else might be able to write a song on the edge of a cliff. I don't know. I used to go in the bedroom, close the door, play around on my guitar. Now in my condo, I'm able to go and play a song on my keyboards, or mess around, whatever it may be. I used to take my guitar and drive and go into places where nobody would think, and I'd sit in the back seat and start jamming by myself and just coming up with stuff. Whatever it is, whatever makes you happy, wherever you feel the most comfortable. And I'll tell you, I used to do that a lot. And lately, as I get older, I'm thinking of doing that more frequently. I think of my father, Aldo J, who was a virtuoso musician, played with the Baltimore Symphony, graduated from Curtis Institute. And I think of him all the time. And I try to think of certain songs that he would like. And he was the type of classical artist that wasn't like, classical is the only music around. He had a very fond love of the Beatles. He loved Paul McCartney. He loved John Lennon. He loved not only the lyrics, but the compositions of Paul McCartney. And I think it would have been great had if he was alive today. I would have loved to have gone to a concert with him and see Paul McCartney and learn a lot about things. But the things I got to hear my dad talk to me about when I wanted to play saxophone and clarinet, and I sat down with him and he showed me things, and you know, and I asked him questions that only a 9-year old could ask. It was amazing, right? And I took all those experiences and what did I do? I sat down on the piano, I doodled, I played around, um, and I wrote things. I wrote things, I wrote words, I wrote phrases. I might have wrote a chord. Like I told you, the song that I wrote, Now That You're Gone, I must have been about 11 or 12 years old when I wrote the first intro to that song. And I kept playing the intro over and over and over because I didn't have anything to fill it with. I needed life's experience to really say, here's the extra meat you need for this song, Aldo. Here's the extra lyrics. Here's a change. Here's a phrase. Here's a solo. Here's a patch, whatever you want to call it. I needed life to do that for me. I didn't have that when I was 11, 12 years old, right? But I had the match, right? Life experiences was the match book that I strike the match against, and then the song gave birth. And that may be the same for many musicians, right? They come up with a song. They have a hard, a very, very pessimistic situation or horrible outcome. They lose somebody in death, right? They have a divorce. They have a breakup, right? They lose their job. Or the opposite, right? They get married. They have a child, right? Whatever it may be. And they come up with a song that supports that deep emotion, right? That's down inside. And that's what it was with Hearts Collide, right? And Without a Control. You know, Ernie Atella, he heard a song and he was able to just come up with a song, with lyrics to it. Or vice versa. He was experiencing something and he wrote it down. And he said, let me try this. Let me play this. Let me do this. And Don White, our bass player, came up with a song just like that, through experience. And then he wrote something else. And he came up with another song. And that's what makes music, right? It's taking your experiences. Or your experience could be, you have an inspiration from somebody else, right? Or you have all these things that are put together. Inspiration, personal experience, whatever it may be. And all these things come together and they form a mound of Play-Doh, right? Play-Doh is nothing until you put it together, right? You put some blue, you put some red, you make this, you make that. The next thing you know, you have something to really say, wow, this is pretty cool. And that's that collaboration, that construction as you see it building from start to finish. That's how a song is born, right? So I always say to musicians to go outside, feel the nature, go to some place that you like to frequent, whatever it is, the beach. To my friend, that many people would say, oh, that's weird. But he would go to the cemetery and he would feel serene. Now, I'm not saying he wrote about death, right? He wrote some beautiful songs about many things, fun things, cool things. But that place gave him the most sense of anxiety relief, put away jobs, put away this, put away that. So you have to do that when you're writing a song, right? You have to get in your frame of moment. You have to get in your zone, if you will. And that may be different for everybody, right? You move from one house to another, one place to another. Now you have to create a new zone, right? What is that zone? Is it a park? Is it your car? Is it a lake? Is it a cemetery, right? Whatever it is it a boardwalk? Look at the song Carnival, Natalie Merchant. What do you think she was thinking of? She was thinking of a carnival. And she tells you in the lyrics, she tells you in interviews that she always liked carnivals growing up. And, walking by one, you get inspired. You write a song about it. And that's what music is all about, folks. It's about expressing yourself through the experiences that you face, that you are a part of each and every day, right? You could be jogging down the street and you hear a car screeching out and brake slamming, and all of a sudden you have an idea and you come up with a song. You could be doing this. You could be sitting down on a Sunday night having just one glass of wine, right? And you sit back, you go to your keyboard, you go to your guitar, you sit down on your drums, and you say, wow, I feel in this moment right now, I'm going to come up with something, or I'm thinking of a particular mood, and you write it down. You go on a boat, a rowboat, whatever it may be. You think of an experience, and all of a sudden, boom, that idea comes up. Out of Control was something that, my brother and I, and I don't want to say that it's just my brother and I have a sister. We have a sister too, Dina. But obviously Dina wasn't part of High Risk. But Steve, the drummer, Steve Batelli, and I mean, we sit there and we come up with things, right? He came up with I Don't Remember Yesterday with Jimmy, and then Ernie threw the lyrics on. Well, I came up with Out of Control, right? Ernie wrote the song, really. I give Ernie 99% of that. I really do, Ernie. I really came up with a couple of chords. I just didn't have them structured. I didn't have them in the right place. I didn't have lyrics for it, But once again, I always say this, and I know I've mentioned this in other videos. If you have an idea, write it down, present it. If somebody looks at it and says, oh, that's horrible, great. But at least you gave it a shot. That's the idea. Give it a shot. Even if you think it's not good. Well, I brought it to Ernie. Ernie came to me. He's like, what are you thinking of? I said, Ernie, well, I was doing this. And I showed him what I did, the volume crescendoing in and getting louder. And then dun 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 dun. And I didn't have the rest of the chords. I didn't have or if I did, they were not in order. They weren't at the right place. There was no vocal lines or melody lines or nothing. And Ernie's like, wait a minute. I was like, I'm sorry, Ernie. I was like, Ernie, this is not good. This is not something you want to hear. He's like, no. If Ernie didn't say that, that song would have never been born. But Ernie had faith in it. He said, keep playing it. Steve, what are you doing? Steve came in and started playing it. Don came in and started playing and following it. What chord is this in? F sharp. Okay, great. Boom. Don came in and boom. Within a minute, he had a bass line. And then Ernie said, all right, now we're going to break this down. We're going to go to the chorus. We're going to build to the chorus. Here's the chords. And then we're going to go right to the chorus. And here's what they are. So you see, the idea lit the spark lit the match lit the log. And that's how a song is born. Right? Had I not have said anything, had I not have brought it to Ernie, it wouldn't have happened. And other people have done the same thing. Don brought us his songs. Good reason. Something to look at. I remember Don sitting down with me and saying, Aldo, I want you to play it like this. And I'm like, Don, I don't know if you can do it. Don was like, you can do it. I know you can do it. And I'm sitting there listening to his song, and he played it on and I'm following along. And I'm like, okay, great. I get what you mean now. But then he's like, but wait. I want to do, you got to do the solo like this. I'm like, Don, I don't know. Yeah, you can do it. Don was always like, you can do it. I'm like, is Don the Nike man? But he was right. You know what? He pushed me to it. He said, I want to hear it this way. I want this. I want that. He actually had a frame of mind of what he wanted to hear throughout the song, right? And he conveyed it very well to me. Do this, do that. Do a dive bomb. What's a dive bomb? A whammy bar? Meow. Okay. When do I do that? Do it here, right? And that was good. That was good. Ernie, on the other hand, with Out of Control, Ernie gave me free control. Do what you want. I don't really care. And I was shooting for perfection when we were doing the solo, when I was doing the solo. And Ernie's like, after I don't know how many takes, because I kept stopping it. I was looking for perfection. And Ernie's like, stop it. Do what you feel inside, man. Be Aldo. I never forgot that. I never forgot how he said that. Be Aldo. You're not being Aldo. You're thinking too far outside the box. And see, sometimes that's what we do. You always want to go into the studio, whether it's your home studio, wherever it is, and always just be yourself, right? You're not trying to emulate anybody else. You're trying to be you, right? And I think that maybe that was a whole lot. Like I was always inspired by at the time. I loved Joe Perry. I loved Buck Dharma. I loved Aerosmith. Well, I said Joe Perry. I loved Eddie Van Halen, right? I loved all these guys, right? Brian Adams, guitarist, Keith. Oh my God, why am I losing it? I'll come back to it. Scott, Keith Scott. Is that right? Awesome guitar player, very melodic. And why is that? Because that was the part of our lives at that time. They were in the focal front, right? Of course, there was other bands, but I used to like the melody of Keith Scott. He had just so much feeling, right? Listen to Brian Adams songs, and you'll know what I'm talking about, right? Just that feel. Eddie Van Halen loved Keith Scott, by the way. Oh my gosh, he talked about him so many times, right? Sometimes technicality of musicians, people think it's got to be. I used to think that, I got to play really, really fast. And if I don't, it's not about that all the time, right? It's about here. When we think of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, sometimes he wrote a song with 2 chords, 3 chords, and they were #1 hits because he was able to grasp the audience attention. He was able to emotionally grab their attention. And it didn't have to be fast. It didn't have to be, Yngwie. Does that mean I don't like Yngwie? Absolutely not. He's probably one of my favorite guitar players around. I love Yngwie, and I'm so glad I got to see him in Philadelphia. But by all that aside, I like the feeling of Joe Perry. Joe Perry had so much rock and so much blues and feeling in the songs that he recorded. Amazing. Brad Whitford, very underrated guitar player of Aerosmith. Phenomenal guitar player. I even liked him in Whitford St. Holmes when he broke off in like the early 80s to do that solo while Joe Perry was doing the Joe Perry project. But phenomenal players. I mean, and I liked all kind of players too. Blues players, rock, even R&B stuff. I got into everything, and I'm very, very grateful for Dr. Theodore Kiefer from Camden County College. I took 3 music theory classes there. I would have taken the 4th one, but he retired. Dr. Kiefer, why'd you do that? He was phenomenal. And I remember doing a Chopin piece for my junior year graduate. Well, I shouldn't say junior year. Music Theory 3. We had Billy Paul was in our class. Billy Paul, the famous Billy Paul who wrote this famous song, Me and Mrs. Jones, was sitting right next to me in Camden County College in 1986. What a guy, man. Rest his soul. I mean, he was a beautiful human being. I loved him. He was a good, close friend of mine. I could tell you stories about him, and I should do another video just on Billy Paul, but Ted Kiefer's class was awesome, and I learned a lot about that. I learned about appreciating music, even though you might have a love for whatever it is. You might love big bands, you might love classical, you might love rock, you might love disco. Learning about all music genres, you learn to appreciate things, right? Right? There's a lot of stuff that Yngwie does that's bluesy, right? But of course, he is more classical, right? He was a trained guitarist. I don't know. There's not enough words to say about Yngwie. I love him to death, right? And all these guitarists, Eddie Van Halen never cut people up. He always said, people are expressing themselves. It's their personal expression, right? Right? Whether somebody's playing 400 notes in a minute and somebody's playing 200 or 100 or doing whatever it is, it doesn't mean they're better than somebody else, right? There's a lot of people playing very, very fast and nobody knows who the heck they are. But then there's people that are playing 3 chords and they're #1 artists, right? It's how you grab your fans, right? It's the words that you're writing. It's the message you're trying to convey. It's the theme of your song. It's the melody. It's the chorus, right? People are going home at night thinking of different things, right? Right? And most people, Most people are not thinking about how fast somebody's playing. They're thinking about, what do I know about this song beyond that, right? What can I take? If I was to go deaf tomorrow, what do I know about I Want to Hold Your Hand? Well, you think about the lyrics, you think about the harmony, right? Those are the things you remember. You're not remembering that he's doing a C and a G and a this. You're not thinking of that. And that's exactly what it is when you're writing a song, right? Obviously, you got to think of chords and patterns eventually, but you're thinking of a mood, you're thinking of an experience, you're thinking of a situation, whatever that you've been in, a traumatic event, a beautiful event. And that's the spark that lights within you. And you say, I want to write a song about this. What do I want to convey? When I wrote Hearts Collide many years ago, I wasn't thinking about a rock star performing and seeing a girl in the distance and falling in love with her. That wasn't what brought Hearts Collide to the forefront. When I decided to release that song with High Risk, I wanted to do a video, and then that idea came to mind. Like, oh, let's write this about a rock star who's on tour and he's performing, and he looks out in the audience and he sees a woman that just pretty much tunnel visions him to her, and everybody else doesn't matter. And that's the girl he wants, and he pursues her from A to Z. And that kind of hit me right in the heart. It was like, Aldo, this is what Hearts Collide is about. It's about true love. It's about passion. It's about longevity. It's about everlasting love. It's not about, and I always say this, the Fonzarelli love, where you go from Tanya to Sally to Marie to Lucy to this one to that one. No, it's about, I fell in love with this one girl, and I'm gonna love her to the end of time. And that's what I wanted to convey in the video. And I thought about that after the fact, right? I didn't think about it when I wrote it in the 80s, right? I wasn't thinking that, I mean, of course I was thinking of chivalry and true love and all that. Yes, that obviously was the spark that, set the whole thing off. But I was not sitting there going, I want to write this song about a rock star. That came later. That came when I had to come up with the video and say, what do I want this to be about? Right? And that's how it happens, right? Van Halen didn't write Panama and say, you know what, I want to see David Lee Roth swinging across the Spectrum stage holding a boombox. No, they didn't write Panama for that. They just wrote Panama because it was something that came to mind, right? David Lee Roth heard the song, he heard the guitar, the rhythm, and he came up with the lyrics, right? While he was driving his car. Roll the seat back. Right? He came up with these lyrics as he heard the song. So everybody comes up with a song in a different way, right? You're probably going, what the heck is he talking about? And what's this video about? Well, this video is about how people can be inspired. They can be inspired through their personal experiences. They can be inspired by just something that comes to mind. Maybe they hear something. I was working out the other day and I heard I don't know, my mind started going off and hearing things. And I'm like, bum, 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 bum. I turned on my video and I started humming what I was thinking. And I'm like, man, this sounds good. So this is what happens to me. I get in and I'm working on a current song. And the next thing you know, I have something else that comes into my head. The current song sits there. And then I start working on the newer idea. Many musicians go down that rat hole, if you will, right? It's like you have Project A, but then Project B comes into your mind. So now Project A is on the side. Project B is the focal. You start to work on Project B, and then all of a sudden, what happens? The bowling ball falls off the table. Ow! It falls on your foot. You start screaming and yelling. The next thing you know, Project C is now in the forefront. What the heck happened to Project B and A? I don't know. They're there. So I write them down. I write the lyrics. I think of chords. I go to the keyboard. I start playing stuff. The next thing you know, something else happens, And I try to sit there and go, finish one song before you move on to something else. I don't know. Everybody writes differently. Everybody does things. All I'm trying to say to a lot of the younger musicians out there that have been reaching out to me, write stuff down. Do not be anywhere without a phone or without a pen and a paper or a booklet or whatever it is to write down your thoughts. It might be a chord, it might be a bum, 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 whatever it is, write it down. Because, you'll be surprised. You'll go to think of it later, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, I forgot that. What the heck was I thinking about? Why am I not, you know, remembering what I thought of? Anyway, so I have some really good news. I am working on a Hearts Collide update. Let's just say that, right? And I can't wait for you to hear it. In between me working on the Aldo J songs, again, we get distracted, right? If this was a full-time job for me, I'd be working on my songs 100% of the day. But I have a daytime job like everybody else, or most musicians today that are doing this for fun, and that's not their life. So I'm trying my best. I'm trying to do the best that I can to come up with things and to record them. And, it's like ADHD sets in, and the next thing you know, A and B are done, and the next thing you know, I'm working on Project C. I don't know why it's like that. I have no idea. And I hate this chair because it's making all kind of noises and stuff like that. But thank you for the comments. Thank you for the support over the last few months, the last year, whatever it may be. We've released several songs. The videos, I hope we're capturing the lyrics that we tried to convey in the songs. I just know that the guys it was a very special time of our lives. I wasn't anticipating it. Like I said, we got together just to do a benefit concert to the American Cancer Society. And the next thing you know, we're recording songs. That wasn't how it was supposed to be. But I'm glad it happened, right? Because it gave me the spark to do things that were sort of in the closet. And I owe that to Ernie. Ernie really, really helped to push that out in all of us. And, Ernie brought on Don White onto the scene. I knew Don just through passing in high school at Camden Catholic High School, but he was a year older than me, right? So, I mean, that's when I would see him at his locker. Hey, what's up, Don? Hey, what's up? He graduated with my cousin Leonard. So I really didn't know him like that until after. Ernie knew him through other people and through Matt and whoever it was. And, that's how things happen, right? David Lee Roth was not a part of the original Van Halen. It happened after the fact, right? Right? Hey, I know this guy. He's got a PA system. That way his name is David, blah, blah, blah. The next thing you know, he becomes the singer of the band. That's how these relationships form, right? And that's exactly how songs form, through an idea, through a spark, right? And that spark could be, like I said, an idea that maybe the band, after hearing it, they all agree it's not good. Or they build on it, like Ernie built on my idea with Out of Control. So always present your songs, always present even the littlest thing, even if it's two chords. What were you thinking? What's the theme? What's the passion? What's the mood? Right? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it whatever it is? And present it. And you'll be surprised. What you don't have, somebody else has. And they add to it. It becomes building blocks. Right? That's what makes a band. That's what makes collaboration happen. So thank you to Ernie, Don, Steve, Jimmy, and Jimmy. All of these guys had made high risk possible over the years. And I just want to thank everybody. Stay tuned for some updates, for some more songs and where we are with things. See Ernie Attella. Ernie's got some stuff out there. Don White's working on his Jester songs. I'll be working on new stuff as I continue to work on new stuff with Aldo J. And we'll see where things go at this point. But right now, enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have fun. Try to stay cool or warm or wherever you're at. And keep on rocking, right? Turn up the music. Keep rock music alive, right? Thanks, guys. Aldo J signing off. See you soon.